Jake thought his mother Emily would protect him, but chilling texts revealed she let her boyfriend turn their home into a nightmare. Emily's house sat quietly on a suburban street, the kind of street where children's laughter filled the air in the evenings and neighbors waved from their porches. On the outside, it looked like any other home in the neighborhood. Flowers bloomed in the front yard, the paint was fresh, and the mailbox bore the family name neatly printed in black letters. Emily had worked hard to maintain this appearance of normalcy, and for the most part, she succeeded. Friends and acquaintances often complimented her on how well she managed everything, how her son Jake seemed happy and well-behaved. To them, it was the picture of a perfect home, a mother doing her best and a child thriving under her care. Jake, 10 years old, was bright and polite, always greeting neighbors with a shy smile and waving to passing cars. He excelled in school and showed a natural curiosity for science and reading. Teachers described him as quiet but kind, always willing to help his classmates. At first glance, there was nothing to suggest the horrors he was enduring at home. His injuries were subtle, hidden beneath long sleeves and carefully rehearsed excuses. Scratches on his arms, bruises on his legs, each one explained away as minor accidents, nothing to worry about. Emily's explanations were calm and believable, the kind that left others nodding and moving on without a second thought. The darkness in Jake's life began when Emily met a man online. He was charming, attentive, and seemed to care about her deeply. Their relationship progressed quickly, and before long, he had moved into the house. At first, he appeared kind to Jake, taking an interest in his hobbies and spending time with him. Emily seemed happy, even relieved, believing she had found someone who could support both her and her son. But soon, the charm began to fade, replaced by tension, control, and fear. Subtle at first, his dominance over Jake grew with every day he spent in their home. Emily, who had once appeared protective, slowly began to enable the situation. She dismissed Jake's complaints as exaggerations, ignored visible signs of injury, and continued to allow the man to live with them without question. Behind closed doors, the air was heavy with fear. Jake learned to stay silent, hiding the truth from anyone who might notice, while Emily maintained her outward image of a loving mother. The neighborhood never suspected what was happening inside those walls. Friends visited, neighbors smiled, and Jake's teachers saw only the boy who tried to pretend everything was normal. The house, so full of light from the outside, held shadows that no one could see. As the tension inside Emily's house grew, Jake found himself increasingly isolated. Each day became a careful balancing act of hiding the pain and bruises while trying not to anger the man who had moved in. The fear in his eyes was something no child should ever carry, yet he learned to mask it with quiet obedience and forced smiles. Even at school, he became withdrawn, avoiding attention and retreating into his books. Teachers noticed subtle changes: the way he flinched at loud noises, how he hesitated when asked to participate in physical activities, the shadows beneath his eyes. But without concrete proof, there was little they could do. The first breakthrough came when Jake finally confided in a school counselor. His words were halting, filled with hesitation, but the counselor understood the urgency. This led to a deeper investigation, and what authorities uncovered was chilling. Emily's phone contained hundreds of messages sent to her boyfriend, messages that on the surface seemed ordinary: concern about groceries, plans for the evening, or casual updates, but hidden within them were instructions that revealed a far darker reality. These were not casual exchanges. They were a blueprint for abuse. She described how to control Jake, how to punish him, and how to respond if he cried out or resisted. Every message demonstrated a calculated disregard for her son's safety, a step-by-step documentation of complicity. Investigators began to trace the timeline of the abuse through these texts. Each message was more disturbing than the last, showing a progression of control, manipulation, and cruelty. Emily's words showed not only neglect but encouragement, a disturbing willingness to allow harm to come to her own child. Some messages even contained advice on how to keep Jake silent, ensuring that no one outside the home would suspect anything. As authorities dug deeper, the network of evidence expanded. Digital footprints, photographs, and other records began to paint a clear picture. Jake had been suffering in silence, and Emily had been aware at every turn. The texts revealed her mindset. She rationalized the abuse, minimized its severity, and made choices that left her son vulnerable. Each new discovery added another layer of horror, showing a mother who prioritized her relationship over the life and well-being of the child she had promised to protect. The community, once trusting and unaware, would soon be shocked by the revelations. The evidence from Emily's messages would not only prove the abuse but expose the chilling truth of her role. It became clear that the story behind the cheerful exterior of their home was one of systematic control, fear, and betrayal. What had started as a seemingly normal family life was, in reality, a carefully hidden nightmare. As the investigation unfolded, the depth of control over Jake became impossible to ignore. Abuse was not always visible in the form of bruises or scratches. Much of it was psychological, a subtle erosion of his sense of safety and autonomy. Daily routines were rigidly enforced, and small mistakes were met with disproportionate punishment. Jake learned to anticipate anger and avoid behaviors that could provoke it, a constant state of tension that left him exhausted and fearful. Even minor slips, a misplaced toy, a late homework assignment could trigger harsh discipline from Emily's boyfriend, and Emily herself rarely intervened. Her inaction was a silent permission, a green light for the abuse to continue unchallenged. Outside the home, Jake's life began to shrink. Invitations to birthday parties or playdates were ignored, either because Emily discouraged them or because the fear of punishment kept him from participating. Teachers noticed he no longer engaged with friends during recess, his once bright curiosity replaced by cautious observation. He flinched when approached by adults and avoided eye contact, signals of a child weighed down by fear. The man in his home dictated not just his safety, but his behavior, his freedom, and his ability to express himself. Evidence collected by authorities revealed Emily's complicity in chilling detail. Surveillance footage, photographs, and receipts showed her awareness of the abuse. She had opportunities to intervene but chose not to, sometimes even rationalizing the harm or minimizing its severity when confronted by outsiders. Messages uncovered from her phone instructed her boyfriend on how to maintain control over Jake, leaving no doubt that she was actively enabling his suffering. Each piece of evidence built a narrative of a mother who had placed a stranger's influence above her child's safety. Neighbors and friends, once unaware, began to see the subtle cracks in the facade Emily had built. Casual remarks about Jake's withdrawn nature or the faint bruises he tried to hide suddenly took on a sinister context. The contrast between the image of a happy home and the reality within was jarring. The house that seemed bright and welcoming was, in fact, a place of fear and manipulation. As the investigation deepened, it became clear that the abuse had been meticulously concealed. Emily's role was not passive. It was active, a chilling combination of indifference and direction that allowed her son to suffer while she maintained the appearance of normalcy. The evidence painted a portrait of control so complete that it left authorities shaken and the community stunned. Jake's life had been systematically restricted and terrorized, all under the roof of a mother who failed to protect him, revealing a darkness lurking just beneath the surface of everyday life. The weight of fear that had hung over Jake for years finally reached a breaking point. Days blurred together, each one marked by strict rules, sudden punishments, and an unrelenting tension in the air. He had grown accustomed to hiding bruises beneath long sleeves and masking his fear with a practiced smile. But the emotional toll was unbearable. Something inside him snapped one evening when yet another punishment left him trembling and exhausted. He knew he could no longer stay silent if he wanted to survive. Jake turned to the only person he trusted outside his immediate home, a distant relative he had met online. He carefully documented the abuse, taking photos of bruises and recording short videos that captured the fear and violence he had endured. Each image and clip told a story Emily had worked so hard to hide, a story of control, manipulation, and pain. Sending these to someone who could intervene felt risky, but the desperation in Jake's heart outweighed the fear. He needed help, and this was his chance to finally reach someone who might act. When the relative received the messages and visual evidence, they immediately contacted the authorities. Law enforcement moved quickly, understanding the urgency of the situation. Warrants were obtained, and a raid was planned to remove Jake from the environment that had imprisoned him for so long. As police entered the house, the chilling reality of the abuse became undeniable. What had been hidden behind closed doors, bruises, damaged furniture, evidence of violent episodes stood as a stark contrast to the picture-perfect home Emily had presented to the world. Investigators also uncovered Emily's texts, revealing a horrifying pattern of complicity. The messages showed that she had not only been aware of the abuse, but had actively instructed her boyfriend on how to control and punish Jake. Each text was like a piece of a puzzle, assembling a clear picture of deliberate neglect and encouragement of harm. Authorities realized that Jake's bravery in reaching out had exposed not just the abuser but also the mother who had allowed it all to happen. The discovery left the community in shock. Neighbors who had once admired Emily for her apparent devotion were forced to confront a reality they could not have imagined. The evidence was indisputable, and the emotional impact on those who had witnessed Jake's struggle from the outside was profound. What had started as a desperate plea for help had unveiled a hidden nightmare, demonstrating the dangerous consequences of silence and the courage it took for one child to finally be heard. The court case that followed shook the community to its core. Emily's boyfriend was the first to face justice, charged with multiple counts of child abuse and endangerment. The evidence against him was overwhelming. Photographs, videos, and first-hand accounts painted a clear picture of the cruelty Jake had endured. But the trial took a shocking turn when Emily's texts were presented as evidence. Each message, carefully documented and time-stamped, revealed the chilling truth. She had not only allowed the abuse to continue, but had actively guided it. The jury listened in disbelief as prosecutors laid out how a mother had enabled harm against her own child, prioritizing her relationship over Jake's safety and well-being. Emily's complicity became the central focus of the trial. Her defense tried to downplay her actions, portraying her as naive or unaware, but the messages left little room for doubt. She had given instructions, minimized the severity of the abuse, and dismissed Jake's suffering repeatedly. Every detail revealed in court deepened the horror, making it clear that the neglect had been intentional. The community that once admired her for her outward appearance of care now struggled to reconcile the image with the dark reality revealed in the courtroom. Meanwhile, Jake began the slow, painful journey toward healing. Removed from the home that had been a source of fear, he was placed in a safe environment surrounded by caring adults who could support his recovery. Therapists worked with him to process the trauma, helping him rebuild trust and learn to express his emotions safely. Teachers and counselors played a critical role in providing stability and encouragement, reminding him that he was not alone and that what had happened was not his fault. The verdicts sent a clear message: no one, not even a parent, is above the law when a child's safety is at stake. Emily's boyfriend was sentenced to a lengthy prison term for the abuse he had inflicted, while Emily herself received a significant sentence for neglect and complicity. The judgment provided a measure of justice, though it could never undo the years of fear and pain Jake had endured. The case left lasting scars on everyone involved, but it also became a powerful reminder of the importance of vigilance and advocacy. It showed how appearances can be deceiving and that sometimes danger hides behind the most familiar faces. Jake's survival and eventual recovery highlighted resilience and the impact of timely intervention. In the end, the story of Emily and her son became a cautionary tale, a chilling example of what happens when a parent turns away from their child and the extraordinary courage it takes for a young life to break free from abuse.